is Alan Wayne here, and I have a great guest that I just came across via Twitter, a gentleman who goes by the name of Poorman, one of the legends of Los Angeles DJdom, I guess you could say, and came across a Twitter post that he had posted about KROQ. It piqued my interest, and about 5-10 minutes later, here we are. Good afternoon, Mr. Poorman.
Keep spreading the fake news about what a legend I am. Keep pumping that.
No, man, I'm not. I ain't pumping the fake news, man. You are the inventor of Loveline. Yes?
But you did not know that until we talked about it like 5 minutes ago before we went on the air, but which is okay, no problem.
Hey,
so I created Loveline. I discovered Dr. Drew, put him on the air for the first time a year after we started the show, and then all these guys stole the show from me after it became number one. They're just a bunch of cheap-ass bootleggers, that's all. They have to steal people's property. And now KROQ's getting it back as a shitstorm in the face. By the way, can I say shit on your show?
You can say shit, fuck, bloody cunt, whatever you want to say. Whatever you want to say.
I just did the Opperman report, and he didn't want me to swear. But either way, whatever. But, in fact, this is 2 interviews in less than a week. My career must be firing at this point, but thanks for having me on, Alan. I appreciate it.
Well, no problem, man. I have a very small but dedicated following, so you'll definitely get some listens here. Okay, so how'd you start out in radio? Like, was the rock your first place to go, or how'd you get started?
Believe it or not, it was my first radio job, and I fell into it by accident. Back when KROQ was an underground station in the early 80s, we could have all been arrested in the studio. There were cocaine deals going down in the corridors, passed out punk rockers. I'll never forget when I first started there were tons of, cans in bags, because if you collected 100 cans and turned them into the station, you could go to Perkins Palace where, on any given weekend you might see Devo, the Plasmatics, Boingo Boingo, the Go-Go's, all these punk bands, Fear, these early legendary bands that at that time were only played by KROQ. And so that was my initial, the way I actually got into radio. I was going to law school, and I wrote a book called The Poor Man's Guide to Dining for Under $6, and another one called The Poor Man's Guide to Gourmet Dining on the West Side of town, which is Beverly Hills. And I was selling my book when it first came out across the street from KROQ. I'd never heard of KROQ. And this long-haired, hippie-looking guy named Rick Carroll, who is the greatest program director of all time, he was KROQ's program director, just taken off. I was trying to sell my book to the owner of the restaurant, and he asked for a free copy. I didn't know him. I didn't know KROQ, and I certainly did not want to give away any free copies when I had printed up 10,000 books on my own to sell. And for whatever reason, I looked at him and I gave him a free copy, and that was a career decision for me.
Nice.
And a year and a half later, my second book had come out. Both my books made the LA Times critics list. I self-published them. And the main people that would read The Poor Man's Guide were students who didn't have any money and middle-aged housewives who wanted to find little hole-in-the-wall restaurants where you could eat for under $6.
Nice.
And so I started on the air reviewing restaurants, and that's how I got the name Poor Man from The Poor Man's Guide.
Nice. That's cool. So it all came together just like that. It's we were talking. It's kind of hard for that to happen these days, but man, good on you. How did you come up with?
KROQ is a place back then when if they had raided the station, we could have all been in jail. There were so many drugs, being consumed in that building, and so much craziness going on. But at the same time, it was this amazingly progressive station playing this weird music that nobody in the country was playing, with the exception of BCN in Boston. And Rick was the guy. When he came in, he formatted it and put it in like a top 40 format, like Kiss FM, but with alternative music, and that's what got the ball rolling. But it was wild at KROQ, just absolutely wild.
In other words, the good old days.
Yeah, but there could be the good old new days too. If, that's obviously what piqued your interest. Right now, KROQ is a corporate disaster. It's awful. This station that used to play all the new music, they're completely corporate. They were owned by CBS. Now they're being taken over by a company called Entercom, and I hope Entercom. I think what's going to happen when Entercom comes in about 3 months, I think they're going to clean house on the entire staff, because KROQ right now is being beaten by the other alternative station in Los Angeles, and that's called Alt, or I call it Not Alt 98.7, which is an iHeartMedia label creation. It's a bunch of labels. They're not alternative. They got these guys in the morning called the Woody Show. I call them Little Wood and his three fingers. They're hideous. And I have, if you look at some of my tweets, I hammer those guys. They're terrible. They're not alternative. They talk about their houses and mortgages. I mean, please.
Right.
It's, you know, but for KROQ to get beaten by them, it just shows how far they've gone downhill, and there's nobody there who's alternative and creative. And as I told you off the air, the program director at KROQ has to be somebody everybody's scared of. It's got to be somebody like me who's been fired from everywhere that nobody will hire, to come in there and get back to what KROQ needs to do, and that's play the new music and play it first, and also to do wild, zany, fun promotions that you just dream up on the spot, and you try them. Maybe they work, maybe they suck.
Yeah.
But, and with new music, I would clean out the playlist. Sorry, I hope I'm not rambling on. Tell me to shut up.
No, man. This is golden. I come from the school. When you interview someone, you let them go, you let them talk, and you'll get the best. You get the best content that way, man. And I am fascinated by this.
Well, here's what needs to be done music-wise. What you have to do is you have to go in there, blow out all the playlist, and no more flashbacks. I mean, great, KROQ played these songs back then. That does nothing now, because they need to, play new music now. And the new music you concentrate on, you go to the internet, and you get a couple people that will research the shit out of the internet, or already know the music scene. You find the artists that have YouTube videos that have hundreds of thousands of views, if not millions of views. They draw huge in concert, and they've got major social media, but they've never gotten regular radio airplay. And it's not just one style of music, it's every different style of music. And you find those artists, no radio airplay, tons of social media, big draws when they play in concert, and huge YouTube hits without ever being played on the radio. And Alan, I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but I don't think in this case I am. There are tons of bands out there that fit that have never been on the radio, and those are the bands you need to play, because if they're already strong online, that's what you want to play on the radio, and then the audience will react to it, and the ones that they react to the best, that's your playlist, and nobody will be playing that, and that's what should be played.
Poor man, you're preaching to the choir, man. I've been doing this for ever since 2013. I actually contacted a record label called Deep Elm Records once, and got their permission to do a show with their music, because it was underground. It had a following similar to what you were saying. And I've always been on the lookout, on Bandcamp and of course YouTube. I used to go to shows and do interviews. Yeah, you're right on the button there, man. I mean, that is what KROQ was formed on. When Rodney was breaking folks like Blondie and the Ramones. I mean, that's what KROQ was founded on, and that's what I said in that post I told you about, was that, you're just kicking the founder of the feast unceremoniously out on his ass and making him carry his own stuff to his car.
Dude, I know. You got to tell people listening right now what you told me right before we did this about how Rodney, Rodney had been on KROQ for 41 years. He was the only guy left, and he's broken thousands of bands, never asked for a penny. And they decide he has one shift a week, Sunday night, midnight to 3. I mean, it's a throwaway shift, which is really insulting for this poor guy.
Yeah.
And he's still breaking bands all the way to the bitter end.
Yeah.
Right to the end. And then they say, okay, we're going to fire him. And then they keep Kevin in Barnyard, who are just awful.
Yeah.
And Barnyard doesn't even live in Los Angeles. He lives in Louisiana, and yet they keep his ass on the air. But so they decide a guy with one shift a week, whose image is great, who everybody in town knows is a true legend in breaking music. Weird, but that's KROQ, weird people are on KROQ. That's the way it should be. So Rodney gets fired. The resultant publicity, you've seen it.
I saw it. It was everywhere.
Daily Variety, LA Times, national articles. Then during his last show a week ago, it's trending on Twitter.
Yeah.
And so yeah, let's get rid of that guy who in 1 week has gotten more publicity than KROQ has gotten in 10 or 15 years. Let's go ahead and get rid of him. I would, if that was me, of course, I would not have it be his last show, but if it was, I'd say, all right, Rodney, we're going to do another last show next week, and then another last show the week after that.
Yeah.
But no, they get rid of him, and now tell everybody what you just told me that I didn't know about. This really is hideous. Okay, so this guy, they're only paying him, by the way, $100 a week, I think. That's
Jesus,
all he ever made.
How does he live?
It's horrible.
How does Rodney on the Rock live? I mean, no wonder he still drives his 1969 GTO. But
I have no idea. Maybe he has a trust fund from his family, but honestly, I don't know. I know that there was a movie, Mayor of Sunset Strip. I haven't seen it, but I hear it's a really emotional movie. He told me that his kitchen was completely filled up with music, acetates from the Beatles, Elvis, Blondie. I mean, all these first run, records that he got because he was breaking all these bands, and he couldn't even move in his kitchen.
Oh man! And he's not selling those. So he's, he's not selling those. So he's keeping them.
No way he'll sell that.
No way. He'll keep the music over everything else. But
Alan, tell everybody though what you just told me about right after Rodney's last shift.
All right, you got it.
Is just hideous.
Well, okay, so Rodney Bingenheimer goes on his last shift, and it's his last show, and he only got notice of that a week or two previously, and so he has all sorts of call-ins, all sorts of fanfare. 41 years in the business, has broken bands you may have heard of like Blondie, Oasis, and thousands of other bands. Brought the Ramones to the forefront, New York Dolls, all these bands that nobody heard of. So basically,
like Coldplay. Coldplay is another one, and
Coldplay,
and Dramarama, and I mean the list goes on and on.
Yeah. So Rodney, this legend, who basically, let's face it, he made the KROQ that people associate with the world famous KROQ, not this station there now that's occupying the 106.7 spot. It is something completely different now. So Rodney Bingenheimer finishes his final shift. He leaves the dark studio, and the last picture on his Facebook is him pushing his cart, his dolly of 41 years of memorabilia and basically everything he had brought with him, pushing his own cart in boxes, in bankers' boxes, to his own car. And like he'd been shit canned for doing something wrong. And it's such a sad thing to see a legend in the Los Angeles music business be unceremoniously thrown out on his ass like that. That makes me angry. That makes me angry. And the only saving grace is other people have seen this, including Richard Blade, Steven Van Zandt. Other people have seen this and said, Rodney, we have a spot for you. We can't talk about it right now, but we're going to get you in. And they're being very secretive about it, but the point is there are a lot of people who want to help Rodney out, but that was just a shame. That was just a shame to see that.
But let's get even more gritty and more real. Okay?
Yes, okay. I'm ready.
Everybody who's on regular radio is a mercenary. You think they're going to all help Rodney? You're lying.
Oh,
they're not going. They can say that on social media. Where's the gig? They're not going to help him.
The both of those guys are actually on Sirius, who you had an issue with. I saw.
I know they are, but where's the gig offer?